At that point, 25 years. And so I remember he said the last would be first, and I went to the Laodicea church, and I started reading this in a way that I refused to look at what I had always taught about this church. I kept reading. I got down to verse 20. And this is what Laodicea is all about. He said, "And behold, I stand at the door and knock. If any man hears my voice and opens to me, I will come into him and sup with him, and he with me." And I began to see something differently there. And the Lord started speaking to me. And he said, the first dimension of seeing the way heaven sees, listen to this, it's not spiritual warfare. It's not even prayer. The first dimension of seeing the way heaven sees is intimacy with the Father. So that's what he said. The first dimension of seeing the way that I see is intimacy. And Ken Malone needed to hear that because, Ron, I'm a vision-driven person. I'm not driven by intimacy, I'm driven by vision. I know that some, like Marshall there, he's driven by intimacy. And it's not that I'm bad and he's good, or vice versa. It's just that's the way God made me. He made me that way because He wants me to be that way. But I also can burn out real quickly unless I get into a place of intimacy with Him. Begin getting there and just staying there a while. Sometimes not even praying. Sometimes just listening to Him. Sometimes just being. Say that again. Sometimes just being.
Yes, exactly right.
Back in 1979, and then we're going to shift and do something different. In 78, some of you, some of those kids back there, they don't even know what I'm talking about. They weren't even around yet. I backslid. Only time in my life I backslid and gotten away from the Lord. I quit going to church. For 6 months or a little longer, I didn't even talk to God. I wasn't going to speak to Him at all. I remember one time Cheryl and I lived in the country, and I was out in the woods hunting, and the pastor came by our house. She wasn't there. But I didn't come out of those woods. I watched him as he walked up to the door and moved the door. Nobody was there, but I wasn't coming to talk to him. I was running from God. In March of 79, I had a truck accident that took me 8 weeks to get over. And so I had all that time at home. At that same time, Cheryl and I were moving into a house that we had just built. And I couldn't do anything. I couldn't lift anything. I couldn't do anything. Guess who helped us move in? The church. And I'm laying there on the couch one day in our new house, still recovering, feeling sorry for myself. And my Bible, not this one, but another one, the edge of it is sticking out from under the couch. We had not even been moved in a week. And I had not picked up my Bible in over 6 months. And my Bible's laying under that couch. And I open it up, and it falls to Matthew 6. Take no thought for your life, what you're going to eat, what you're going to wear, what you're going to drink. Your Father knows you have need of all these things. But seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. And when I heard that word from the Lord, I began weeping as I read that. And this is what the Lord said to me. He said, I sure have missed you. Never condemn me. I sure have missed you. I got up from where I was sitting, and I went out into our utility room. We had a brand new utility room, so there was no junk in it. Just a washer and dryer, and that was it. I went out there and I started spending 4 hours a day for over a year. And sometimes I would go into that place and I would just be. And the presence of God would come in. And just begin manifesting as I was just being there. See, if you begin getting a routine of just being who you are with the Lord, He will begin coming to you every day at that place. If you set a certain time, He'll join you at that time. Hallelujah.
Yes.
Marcia, get on the guitar if you would. That's it. Come on up here, Pam. Pam is one of our spiritual daughters, but she's also a prophet. And I told her if she gets something, I want her to share it. So she's got something.
So during worship, the Lord started talking to me a little bit. And I also do accounting, so he talks to me a lot of numbers. So you guys need to understand a couple things, because what Apostle Ken talked about, some of the different things that were brought out in worship, the Lord was talking to me about. Last night when we stayed at the hotel, we were at 475 Commerce Lake Drive, right? And so Apostle Ken talks about how the Lord's talking about how the foundation is on the apostles and the prophets. Well, Apostle Ken, he was on the 4th floor. 4 represents the door, it represents the Lent, right? So you go in through the door, and then we were up on, Brian, my husband and I were representing the prophetic. We were on the 5th floor, which is the voice of God, the breath of God, the prophetic, what the Lord wants to do. Your property out here is 4475. That's the address of this property. So usually I'm asking the Lord, where are we staying? What is the significance? You're right off of Route 1, right? Where the tour, that tour that Apostle Ken did, the Liberty tour went up here. You guys are on. The Lord transitioned you, right? Because you weren't always here. You were in a different place, and the Lord has transitioned you. And you were talking about how last January Apostle Ken came up to you and hit you 4 times, right? There's a door. There was a door that he pushed open in the realm of the Spirit in you. And now the Lord is taking you to this place where it isn't a single door, it is now a double door. It is a double door that you're walking through. So the Lord is opening up these doors, just like he did in Revelation. He knocked at the door and you let him in. So he has transitioned you into this place. He has brought you here to as the bottom of the backbone. This is a first place. This is a first city. So he has brought you here and he has brought this remnant. So don't be discouraged about the remnant. Don't be discouraged about it. People come in and they go and they come and they go. And it's not the same kind of a crowd, because he is looking to do a new thing, and he's going to be doing a new thing here. So he's going to be bringing people into here to bring an impartation that they're going to bring, but they're also going to take something away, right? You've already gone and you talked about the 4 gateways in the region, that you've already gone and you've done a cleansing in those gateways, right? So you have those doubles. You have those doubles that are coming in, and 7 is Zion, which is the crowned bob, and 6 actually represents the bob, and that's part of your suite number. So the bob is that heaven and earth connection, right? The Lord's knocked on the door. We are the connection between heaven and earth, and because of Christ, right? That crown is on us. When that door opens, we can go in because of him through the door into the presence of the Father, to hear what heaven is saying, right? So when we come down and then we look at that and we hear what heaven says, we can speak prophetically into that. We are in the decade of pay. We are in the decade of the prophetic voice. So the Lord wants to do a new thing. So your services aren't going to look the same. So people are going to come here looking for your traditional. That is not what this is about at all. So the Lord has you here in this first place. He has you here. The foundation angels is what he was talking to me about. The angels of foundation, the angels of founding are in this place. They are in this place. And we have come here to partner. They have been waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting for this time in history. Why? Because there is a shaking that is happening. There is an alignment in the backbone on the East Coast. It is the prophetic structure of what the Lord is doing for the coastal awakening on the East Coast and on the West Coast of Florida. Chuck Pierce prophesied about it in October of 2018, that it will be on the East and the West Coast, and it will meet in the center. So he is pulling out. We have come from the Space Coast to launch something here, to unlock something. You came in and received an impartation on unlocking in January of last year. The Lord is birthing a new thing, and so we came here as the first place. We came here as the oldest place, to go back to the foundation and ask. We're partnering with those angels who came here to found this nation, and ask them, what was it supposed to look like, and where did we go off track? Where did we come out of alignment? And so the Lord is going to have us partner with them to bring this nation back into alignment. But this is the bottom of the backbone. So you guys are going to be helped to support the nation. You're going to be a supporting place. A supporting place. It is a foundational place. So it's going to sit on you. And as we go up and we continue, and as the Lord continues to do things, as he begins downloading things here, as you guys begin to speak prophetically the word of the Lord, it will go up the backbone, because instead of it being all kinked and everything in it, the communication signals, it is going to be in alignment. So the signals will go. They will go, they will go, they will go, they will go. So you're bringing a launching, because you came and you unlocked part of that launching from the Space Coast. You brought that impartation here. You brought the launching from the Space Coast here into this place. The Lord planted you into this new place. He's granted you to a place of a double door that He has opened before you into 2020, and He's going to shift your vision. He is going to send you different types of prophetic people. He is going to send you in these different remnants of these different demographics, of these different age groups, and they are all going to come in. There's going to be this synergy, and it's going to be a unity that is not like other things, because it's not going to look like anything. And because you're just open and willing to do whatever it is the Lord wants to do, then He will go and you will be able to do that impartation. And and it was part of that word when Apostle Ken talked about that Tommy, whatever his last name is. The Lord said, He said, I am going to set up my throne in Florida once again. A fresh river is going to come in and clean up the debris of yesterday, the clogged waters, and healing angels are at the ready for another move of my spirit, says the Lord. So there's a cleansing. There's been this cleansing, but the Lord is setting up His throne. Well, He said, the principality over the state of Florida is the throne of the Almighty God. So He's teaching us how to operate in a kingdom dimension, in a kingdom perspective, and to take it into a new way. And that whole thing with the Chiefs, when He mentioned about the Chiefs, the Chiefs won the Super Bowl. So when the Chiefs win the Super Bowl, there's going to be revival that is going to break out, right? Because the chief of the state is the backbone. The chief state of the nation is the backbone. I'm messing up. I don't even know God. But anyway, and it's not that. It's that chief. It's that foundation. It is a prophetic, you know what I mean? It is alignment of those two things. So the Lord had 50 years, you know what I mean, or however long ago when that was prophesied about them winning. It's for this time. It's for this time. They were there with the 49ers, right? You're coming out of Jubilee, right? You're coming out of the 49ers, you're going into 50th Jubilee. It is time for things to dramatically shift, and we have to just be willing to stop looking in the natural and look with the eyes of the Spirit and partner that way and say, oh, no. Now is the time for these things to change. Now is the time for it to shift, because the Lord will do things in D.C. and He will shift it. Because there was, I'm not going to say who the guy was, because I did not agree with what he said after. Anyways, but what he said, there was a gentleman, and people know him, he's written books and all this stuff, but Monday, January 27th, he said that the Lord woke him up. And the Lord said to him, fire is coming to Washington. He said at 6:30 this morning, between being awake and asleep, he said, I heard these words audibly, that fire is coming to Washington. He goes, and nothing else was said, and there was no clear interpretation of what the fire was. But he went on to talk about how he didn't believe there could be revival and all that, and I was like, well, wait, I know what the fire is, because we're getting ready to do this backbone tour, right? The Lord is bringing fire to Washington, D.C. So absolutely, yes, what you saw, people think, oh, well, there's no way. And we say, oh, yes, there is. Oh, yes, there is, because we are bringing the fire from the Florida state. We are going up and we are picking up fire in Georgia. We're going to go pick up fire in the Carolinas. Then we're going to go in and we're going to pick up fire from Virginia. We are going to go into D.C. and it is going to be this culmination. And we are going to bring that fire in, and it is going to burn up things in D.C. There's going to be a shaking. We are going the week of President's Day, right? President's Day is Monday. It's tomorrow. I don't know what day it is tomorrow. And we are going up. There's no coincidence. We'll be leaving there on 222. The keys, right? All of those things, that establishment of the government. And so we are going to bring that in. There is an launching and an unlocking that is going to be happening. We are going to be locking the doors for people who have signed their name against the plan of God. Their positions will be vacated. They will be hung on the gallows like Haman. The Lord is going to shift. And it'll be the kingdom. The kingdom will be established in the House of Representatives. The kingdom is going to be established in our court system, and this nation will shift into a way that nobody can correct it. Who's been prophesying and call it things that be not as though they are. And you wait and see what the Lord will do.
Sometimes I never understand these prophets. But whenever I hear a word that resonates with me, I do exactly what they say. Tangi, come on up here. Tangi's another spiritual daughter of ours, and she's one of the apostles in the house. She's an apostle over prayer. And they moved from Jacksonville all the way down to Satellite Beach to be with us, and I'm so glad we have them. Jacksonville, you lost. Some gold nuggets.
While Apostle Ken was talking, the angels that showed up brought us into a place like an optical room. and there were these optical devices that began to fall.
Go ahead.
Oh. Okay. There was an optical devices that began to fall all across the room. And I began to ask the Lord, what was he doing? What was he doing? He said, these are my optical devices. You're the optical devices. And some of you, I will give periscopes. Some of you are receiving microscopes. Some of you are receiving telescopes. Some of you are receiving cameras. Some of you are receiving satellites. And the Lord has released the optical devices in this backbone tour. It is very important, the sight that you see. It's very important what you see. And the Lord has now just adjusted your vision. You didn't understand what was being said. You didn't understand the foundation. You didn't understand that the apostles and the prophets were the foundations. Well, now you will begin to see. He's adjusting the vision. I can hear the click, 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 click. And that's what's happening the whole time. So as we begin to move forward, the clicking will continue because your sight is adjusting. And what you thought the word meant by one thing, you'll begin to see that it means something completely different. Because the spirit of the spirit of Resh is the one who looks around corners. It's the spirit of the Lord that sees the original intent. And so it's now time on this backbone tour to see the original intent. What did you actually mean? There's an uncovering. The optical devices are being released.
The optical devices came from 2 dreams I had back in the summer. I think it was in July. And this is very important. I saw the importance of it when, how come you're not going with us?
Yeah. I got this little baby right here.
Exactly.
I had this dream back in July. I don't remember the dates. But the first dream, Hannah Sheets, Dutch's daughter, was handing me a brand new baby that she had given birth to, an infant child. She was giving me this baby. The joy of the Lord that was on Hannah was off the chain. There was no sadness about this transition that was taking place. She gave me this baby, and I'm holding this baby, and I noticed that this baby is filled with the same joy that Hannah is filled with. There was no heartache in the transition. Say there's no heartache in the transition. No heartache in the transition. Remember that. Write that down. Yes. And over here in an executive chair is Bishop Bill Hammond. And as I'm holding this baby, he said, in order to move in the next level of the prophetic, you have to be like this child. In the dream. Begin seeing a lot of different things in that dream, that there is a transition that's taking place in the earth right now to the church, that God is bringing a new level of the prophetic to us. It's not going to be like it was in the old days of the prophetic. There's a new prophetic flow. Give me that music. I like it. I get to prophesy better when I have it. I saw the joy that was on this child. And Bishop Bill Hammond, the granddaddy of the prophetic movement in America, was approving of this transition. And then 3 days later, I have another dream. And in this dream, I'm on a motorcycle. Can you see me on a motorcycle? God would give me that dream. Because before I met her, my plans when I graduated from high school was to buy a Harley. Candy, you ride a Harley, don't you?
Come on.
My plans were to buy a Harley. I was going to take it out to California. I was going to hang out at Haight-Ashbury Street and smoke up with the best of them. But God changed all that. I met her. And He gave me this dream. I pull up to a red light, but I'm in the emergency lane. As if though, emergency lane is when you have an emergency. I pull over in the emergency lane and I pull right up beside a yellow Volkswagen Beetle. One of the older Beetles, not one of the newer ones. One of the good ones. And in this Beetle was Bishop Bill Hammond. Tom Hammond was driving, and Jane Hammond was in the back with her head stuck out the window where her father-in-law was sitting, so she could hear the conversation. And I was telling Bishop Bill Hammond, happy birthday. Wishing him a happy birthday. Lo and behold, after the dream's over, I found out it was the same day his birthday. So after we talk, the light turns green, and I pull out ahead of them. I lose them, and I pull over into the regular lane. As I'm going down the road at no telling how fast, I get pulled over by a Florida State Trooper. One day somebody's going to give me one. She's just going to have to suck it up. And I take off and I get pulled over by a Florida State Trooper. And I'm thinking that I'm going to receive a ticket for speeding. He comes up to the window, and I roll down. Oh, I didn't roll down the window. He comes up. There's no window. He comes up. He says, son, we're about to see if you can see. And he said, follow me. And I take off following behind him. He takes me to a vision testing lab, an optical vision testing lab. He takes me in and sets me down in this vision testing lab. And I'm sitting there, and all of a sudden, the door opens up, and the infant that Hannah gave me 3 days before is now 6 or 7 years old. He comes in, and they're testing his vision, not mine. They're testing his. See, we have to become like that child. And from time to time, you and I are going to have our vision realigned. That's what she was talking about a while ago. Your vision's got to get realigned. Yes. I know some of you have been going through frustration. Some of you have been going through hard times. But God is about to realign your vision. Your vision's coming into place. The Bible says where there is no vision, the people perish. One translation says they have no restraint when they give up their vision. But God is bringing vision back into Florida. He's bringing vision back into America. And it's time that His saints begin to rise up in His vision, not with ours. Time you start getting a vision over your city. Get rid of your own vision. I used to have a vision of having a large church. I had one person tell me one time, they said, when you get big time, I want to be your secretary. I looked at her and I said, I have no desire to be big time. Amen. I want to be in God's time. Amen. Listen to this. 2020, Volkswagen discontinues the production of the Beetle. That means, and that's not anything to do about the Hammonds. It's about where God is taking us now. It's going to be very fast-paced. From time to time, we're going to have our vision aligned. Come into alignment. Stand to your feet. We're going to sing in the Spirit a few minutes. I'm just trying to hear the Lord on what we need to do. Two things I want to do. One is I want to say to some of you that you're in wrong alignment. You need to begin to aligning properly for several things. One is for peace. You've not been operating in peace. Another thing is you need to come into alignment with mercy. Mercy is one of the key things right now that God is speaking in the earth. I was with Dutch and Tim in 2016 when that angel came up to us in front of the White House. And 6 times said, mercy, 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 mercy. When Hurricane Dorian threatened Florida, we did a prayer call for about 6 or 7 days. And our number one prayer was not rebuking it, decreeing mercy over Florida. And God built a wall of mercy up and down the East Coast. And where I live there in Satellite Beach, the county made all of us evacuate. It wasn't even a choice. The HOA even made us evacuate. And I went and I got on the elevator on a Thursday getting ready to leave. And the elevator comes down from above. Usually it doesn't do that, probably, although there are 2 stories above us. Usually it comes from below. And there were 2 ladies on there. And one was an older lady, one was a younger lady. Both were attractive. And when I walked into the elevator, the peace of God came upon me. I had stuff in my hands, and the older lady looked at me and said, "Are you evacuating?" I said, "Yes, ma'am, I am. I've been through a Category 1 and a Category 2. I have no intention of going through a 5. I don't care how tough you are. I'm not even thinking about going through a 5. And the young girl, like this young thing right here, she got this close to me. And she said, "Brevard is protected." That's the county we live in. And God has sent 2 angels to tell me everything was going to be okay. Now listen to this. This is how you've got to know what to prophesy.
That's exactly right.
The prophets across the nation, not the real prophets, the doomsday prophets, began to prophesy judgment was coming to Florida. You know why they were prophesying that? Because they watched the prophet on the Weather Channel. They wasn't hearing from the Lord. I didn't know whether it was coming or not. I just know I didn't want to be in it. I started crying out, mercy, mercy, mercy. Some of you need to get into the mercy of the Lord. You've been beat up. You've been beat up, you've been put down, you've been thrown around. It's not the devil that needs to be rebuked. You need to dip into the mercy. The mercy of God. He said in the book of Psalms, he said that mercy and goodness would follow us all the days of our lives. Some of you, listen to this, have been appointed to success, but you're in wrong alignment, and that's why you're not seeing it. You need to get in right alignment so you can begin to succeed in what He's called you to do. Right alignment is so important. Now, Lord, as you align this backbone, I decree that you will align every person here. I see some of you moving around, and it's like musical chairs. The sound of the prophetic song is going around. You're going around with it, and all of a sudden it's going to stop, and you're going to sit down and be in a new location.